All right. Thank you guys for checking that out. Next up, we have a really fun session. Eli Stacy from Disguise is going to be joining me to talk a little bit about what Disguise is doing. They've really everyone knows them for concerts and broadcast productions, but they're making huge moves in the Pro AV space. So, Eli Stacy, let's go ahead and bring him on. Hi, Eli. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing well. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the good people watching Launch Week 12.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Eli Stacy. I'm the Solution Design Manager for the US at Disguise. Disguise is a global company working, as you were just mentioning, used to be kind of mainly in the concert space, but we really expanded into really all types of markets that utilize video at scale.
Wonderful. So I know you have a presentation, so we could go ahead and cue that up. All right, beautiful. They're seeing it now.
All right, excellent. So yeah, we can kind of start to go through this. So yeah, as what we're looking at is really around trends within the visual space from our perspective. So a lot of this is scaling real-time power to that larger scale, right? This is a good example of the sphere. But we'll go through these projects in a little more detail. It's no surprise to everyone that we're living in an area of new visual experiences. What typically, someone might have experienced at a museum or at home or at a movie theater or at a concert over the last 10 years and even 5 years especially, we've seen what that means really change. The terminology of location-based experiences, immersive installations, these are new formats that are really hitting the entire world. And we've been lucky enough to be part of many of those. And that's what we do. We deliver these next generation visual experiences. Our platform is designed around being able to take in a lot of different data points, being able to work with a lot of different types of content. And this has really allowed our customers to kind of unlock a lot of visual experiences that wasn't really possible before. It really is this convergence of a lot of interesting technologies kind of coming together at once. you know, as I was mentioning, concerts being really the start of where we began this whole journey. You know, Massive Attack and U2 in the 2000s. They were
Mhm.
doing some very early versions of data integration, even with Massive Attack having live data. It was the first internet connected concert. That kind of idea of really pushing the boundary of what a visual medium means and how it's connected with the people in the audience and the music and the experience as a whole. That kind of ideology has certainly translated, and of course everyone is looking to be more connected and more interoperable and things like that. So what started off as a kind of media server doing video playback for
Mhm.
a couple of screens at a concert has now gone on to all of these major tours around the world. And you obviously have seen some really interesting designs for both the stage design for concerts, but then as we look at how that technology has transferred into the rest of the markets, we're seeing broadcast, AV, fixed installs also adopting a lot of the same technology.
The world has definitely changed.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'd love to go to a concert, from the same artist even from 10 years ago to now, and guaranteed to be very different, especially this kind of tier uh, live space. And so that's, it kind of showed you where we started. We were very lucky enough to start with these very prominent artists, but really we've put in a lot of effort to develop ourselves and develop the system to uh, be designed around what these huge concerts need. They need synchronized playback across a massive amount of screens. They need all different types of content integration, lighting integration, show control, all these different things, redundancy, reliability. And that has kind of landed us into a very good market position with A-list artists. But of course, there's only so many of them. So we have definitely been looking at how to take that technology that we've been working with at that high tier and kind of distribute that to all of our customers. And so this is kind of where we enter into the kind of brand activation space and then into the AV space more generally. We still kind of living in this world of trying to do unique visual experiences. We have
Yep.
a very good, uh, you know, product for projection mapping, so we saw a lot of activations with that. We've seen Times Square takeovers, anything that involves like visual medium at scale. We really have all the tools in place. So anything you can think of, we can do it. And brands are starting to pick up on that. But besides just activations, we're seeing full-on stores being implemented with our systems, theme parks, and things like that. And corporate AV is definitely becoming a big space for us. So like Snap, their partner summit, for instance, they're using us for the video playback on all the screens. Being able to independently manage the vertical screens and playing that back separately from the center screen and the backdrop, taking that all into account in 3D space is really important. And they recognize that perception is everything, and so people are putting on these more and more grand shows.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So like as you were kind of talking about, we're seeing this like change from Disguise just being known for all of these massive concerts and these massive broadcast productions, but now we're seeing these activations just about everywhere, and like particularly in like ProAV. So what do you think is driving this expansion?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I think the perception that of a company through their public-facing medium is becoming more and more important. At the same time, especially when you look at these tech companies, which I will admit definitely try to adopt this technology a lot quicker than more traditional companies in the maybe Fortune 500 space. Part of it, honestly, and this is what I'm hearing from them, is like they are seeking to have the company just be interesting for employee retention, even
Yep.
or being able to more accurately or more entertainingly convey their product and kind of build internet hype around it to
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
cool. um, so when we talk about a new breed of creative and technological collaboration for these projects, what I'm really talking about a lot of times is content and data input. So we could be seeing it's not just video playback anymore. You're utilizing real-time engines, and Unreal Engine is probably what a lot of people come to mind when I say that. And of course, that is supported, but we're seeing Touch Designer, Notch, Snapchat, Unity, all these different engines, being kind of used in the same system. And that's just the rendering aspect of it. The control can be from a restaurant, it can be from a lighting board, it can turn your LED wall into some touch interactive display. There's just so many new ways of kind of connecting one piece to another that didn't exist before. And we're really seeing types of projects that are really never before done because of the technology. And so kind of a lot of the stuff that we've kind of developed early on is still very much carried on into what we built today. So across our near 25 years in history, we've really been kind of developing our main software platform, Designer. This software is extremely powerful. I'll show you in a demo in just a minute. But typically that's had to run on our very powerful media servers. And great for concerts and things like that, but just admittedly, they're cost prohibitive for an average user, a prosumer, or this kind of corporate AV space to be able to utilize it effectively at scale. So we've kind of taken all that power and kind of added it to now a licensable software that you can add onto any computer with our X1. I got a little dongle right here for it. And so that's kind of the translation that we're making, and this is a big reason that we've been integrated into some of the AV markets already. Is definitely being able to open up the platform to more hardware options. What does the software do, right? Not, it can mean a lot of different things. We do, LED control, projection control, lighting control. So that's video playback. For LED, it could be like converting a video to, reactive lighting based on that video, so that live translation. Of course, for production and broadcast, we can see XR and virtual production being large parts of our workflow. There's hundreds of studios that are using us for their broadcast or virtual production, car process, everything like that. Projection mapping is huge, calibrating, and then the integration side of it, which is, okay, cool, it's good to have this kind of set up, but then how do I operate that day in, day out? How do I turn this into a repeatable ride, or something like that? Like, there's so many aspects that are beyond just like the technical capabilities. Then it becomes about integration and control. This is an example of the meta stage, for instance. Corporate brands are adopting this. HP, Microsoft, and Xbox, kind of different agencies. Meta, of course, and all of these companies are building these stages, and it's not necessarily having a huge LED stage doesn't necessarily drive revenue, but they definitely see how it aligns with their vision. Like Meta, obviously, they're all about the metaverse and virtual places. This is a literal manifestation of taking that kind of virtual space and bringing it into the physical, and so it aligns very well in that way. And yeah, as I said, it's bringing a live event company into a global technology company.
Mhm.
So again, it's not just concerts where we started off with. I mean, pretty much any vertical we work with now. So you can see, yeah, live, obviously, Sphere, big concert shows, stuff like that. Location-based experiences. This is it's Lightroom in London, Illuminarium. These type of like Van Gogh projection map rooms experiences are quite popular, but we're kind of seeing more nuanced versions of these kind of come out. Virtual production. This is Our Flag Means Death, but tons of virtual production exists for so many different types of productions, a lot of which are in studios or NDA don't know about, but there's been quite a few. And broadcast as well. So this is from ESPN's studio in Bristol. They're using very advanced XR stage with 4-camera ghost frame technology. If you know, you know, sort of thing. Very, very impressive technology on their side. And I think after this, we can kind of jump into the demo, just being conscious of time. But the software and the platform really consists of Designer, our 3D visualizer, our content flexibility, being able to work with all these different types of content at any given point, the integrations with third-party software and technologies, and our extremely reliable, powerful, bespoke hardware that can scale to literally any size that you need. There's nothing is too big. We love the big, but also we can scale down, right?
Which is important too.
Yeah, no, honestly, these days it's becoming more important. It's better to be, nimble and be able to, address any problem that comes up quickly and with a kind of more flexible solution than, just going all in on big, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm gonna stop sharing on my side, and then I'm gonna switch over to our software to take a look.
Sounds good. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you another question. If you just want to talk a little bit about like how your platform kind of connects design and visualization and playback in real time, I think that would be cool for our audience to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it'll come up in just a second, but jumping into our software designer, this is really where all of that comes to life. At the very beginning, Designer is a pre-visualization software. So, and you can also say it's a tech visualization in a way. We're not just saying, okay, within our space, this is what it's going to look like. This is how the content is going to be perceived. This is the pixel pitch that I'm putting on here. I know that this text is going to be legible. I know that this is my projector overlap. This is the blending that I need. There's a lot, or this is like, if you're doing like a stage show or something that has like a sequence within it, it's testing that time code sequence. It's seeing how a viewpoint will be obstructed when a certain stage element is moved through scene automation. Like, there's so many different elements that are taken into account. This pre-visualization becomes a really critical key component in being able to approve designs without necessarily being able to access a space.
So yeah, I'm interested to see how this works a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm probably going to be moving a little bit quick, just being conscious of the time. This isn't a tutorial, but I do want to show you kind of some of the cool things that we can do.
Yeah.
So very high level, looking at our software, we have a 3D visualizer where we put all of our different displays and elements within our space. We have a timeline where we can sequence a bunch of content. You can actually have multiple timelines for a variety of reasons. And then we'll get to this maybe later, but how we actually output these windows to your LED processor, your projector, synchronizing multiple servers, all of that is controlled from just this one interface. So at the very, setup, this works very much like a Premiere or something like that, where I can go in and say, okay, let's, pick this video file or something, and I can hit play on the timeline, and boom, it's now mapped to the surface. And it can also see that if I go into my window here, this is now going to be the projector output. So if I were to quickly, just like add a new screen, you can see how this is now going over like the HDMI output of my computer to the projector. You can see if I move the projector back, and there's like a little bit of overscan here, you see that reflected within the space too. So we can look at this a little bit more, but just the idea that we're connecting content to the virtual display that is being mapped onto to the actual output of the system. So while that's quite basic, let's have some fun with it. So what I can do now is I'm going to make a duplicate of the screen. We got another one. I can move it off to the side. And then this isn't a projection screen. This is an LED screen. I can have what was my video kind of mapped onto this surface. I can have another video mapped to the other surface, right? That's
cool.
That's fine. So we can really control a lot of screens at once. Now, where it gets interesting is, right now we've done what's called direct mapping. I have a 16:9 video onto a 16:9 screen. That's not that impressive, right? So how do we actually utilize the software to benefit from this? So for instance, that would be mapping, right? How the content actually gets mapped to the space.
Yep.
So for a new type of mapping, I'm going to call it a parallel map. This is able to take one piece of content and map it to multiple surfaces. So right now, surface 1 and 2, you can see the window down here of what we want to cover. And I need to make some minor adjustments. So this will be, I need to just like change the scale of where my mapping is going to be. And then I can change the position of it. And so now, when I get out of here, you can see how this one piece of content is now being mapped across multiple surfaces. This is an LED screen, this is a projection screen, but you see it's minding the gap. And as I move the screen back and forth, you can see how it's really taking the screen's position into account. So this is an important aspect of it. It's like actually measuring what the real life position is versus how you actually have your content in the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then, those of you that have worked with some of these kind of larger LED screens, you'll know that an HD 16:9 is nothing crazy. So let's bump this up. So let's times this by 4 for the resolution, and then let's times it by 4 here. I can look at a test pattern and verify that my resolution matches my aspect ratio of my screen. These are based on real world sizes, 7680 by 1080. That's just the size of the screen in this case. So let's go into our window and see what it would take to actually map this to the output. So as I get additional screens, I can say, each one of these is actually 3840 by 2160. And this is something where I'm actually I'm forcing the EDIDs on the outputs of the system. So I can, make sure that it's at a very specific frame rate. It can be gem locked, synchronized across multiple servers, all from this one interface. But then, mapping to the output is as simple as that. Just dragging it to the window. But you see, we need to split it in half, and then here, perfect. Or, sometimes you have to split it and rotate it and whatever you need to map your processor. I mean, those of you that have done this a bunch know that this can be a bit of a pain. We basically have all of this just in the back of the server. And you'll see that I've made these slices and rotations, but it has no impact on the actual mapping of the content. So it really separates the kind of technical from the creative in a way.
Nice. Well, Eli, I know we're about out of time. Is there like one more thing that you would love to show our audience before you go?
Um, there's a lot of different things that we can do within here. I'm showing video content. Obviously, this is a very rich version here, but we could really expand upon this. When a lot of people think about Unreal Engine and virtual production, they think of that technology very locked into that workflow where, okay, sure, I have an XR stage and I have tracked camera and all these things, and cool, we could do that very well, in fact. But what I really want to emphasize is this technology that typically was kind of meant for studio and broadcast, you can take to home even. I can run this on my laptop now. I could do XR from my laptop. I could do, these really massive scale projects just from a simple computer with the X1. So being able to take real time, generative, interactive, uh, you know, complex sequencing and control and kind of take that to any project has been extremely powerful.
Absolutely. Last question I have for you. Where can people find you if they have questions for you after this? And where can people find more information on Disguise?
Yeah, absolutely. So if any of you wants to reach out, I am on LinkedIn or Eli, ELY, Stacy, STACY, at disguise.one. Or you can go to our website, disguise.one.
Awesome. Eli, thank you so much for your time and thank you for that demo.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.